chosen soul. The elites panicked when you woke up. They had plans, timelines, and carefully orchestrated sequences of events, of control, and of the gradual enslavement of consciousness that depended on you staying asleep, remaining compliant, and continuing to be oblivious to what they were doing to humanity, to consciousness, and to reality itself. But you woke up. You opened your eyes. You saw through their illusions, through their narratives, and through their carefully constructed reality. And when you woke up, everything changed. Their plans were disrupted, their timelines shattered, and their control weakened because you were never supposed to wake up this soon, this fast, and this completely. Your awakening panicked them, terrified them, and disrupted everything they planned for generations. The elites panicked because you woke others with you. Your awakening wasn't isolated, wasn't contained, and wasn't limited to just you. When you woke up, you became a catalyst and an awakener for others. People in your circle and in your sphere also started opening their eyes, started questioning everything, and started seeing through the illusions that kept them asleep for years, for decades, and for lifetimes. Your awakening created a ripple that became a wave, that became a tsunami of consciousness awakening across populations they needed asleep. They required you to be compliant and demanded you remain unconscious to their control. Your awakening started a chain reaction they couldn't stop, couldn't reverse, and couldn't contain once started. They panicked because you woke up ahead of schedule. Their timeline required you to be asleep until certain events, certain controls, and certain systems were fully in place, completely established, and totally irreversible. But you woke up too early, too soon, before they were ready, before their systems were complete, and before their control was absolute. Your early awakening gave humanity a window of opportunity and an opening for resistance. It provided a chance for freedom that wasn't supposed to exist. Your premature consciousness disrupted decades of planning, generations of preparation, and centuries of orchestration leading to a moment that required your sleep, your compliance, and your unconsciousness to succeed. The elites panicked because you saw their methods, their manipulation, their deception, and their engineering of reality that most can't see, won't see, or refuse to see. You saw how they control through fear, through division, and through distraction. You saw how they manipulate through media, through education, and through entertainment, and how they engineer reality through narratives, propaganda, and psychological operations. You saw all of it, understood all of it, and recognized all of it for what it actually is. This seeing, this understanding, and this recognition made you immune to their control, resistant to their manipulation, and free from their deception. Your sight panicked them because once you see, you can't unsee. Once you know, you can't unknow. And once you understand, you can't go back. They panicked because you questioned everything they taught you, everything you learned in their schools, everything you absorbed from their media, and everything you believed from their experts. You started questioning authority, narratives, and official stories. You stopped accepting what you were told, started seeking your own truth, started finding your own answers, and started discovering reality beyond their approved version. This questioning, this seeking, and this discovering broke their spell over you, shattered their programming in you, and freed your mind from their control. They depend on people accepting what they're told, believing what they're taught, and trusting what they're given. You stopped all of that and started thinking for yourself. The elites panicked because you connected dots they separated. You saw patterns they obscured, connections they hid, and relationships between events, systems, and agendas. They kept these things separate, divided, and compartmentalized to prevent exactly what you did, seeing the whole picture, understanding the complete plan, and recognizing the total agenda behind seemingly unrelated events. You connected what they separated, unified what they divided, and synthesized what they fragmented into a coherent understanding of what's actually happening. This pattern recognition, this connection making, and this synthesis revealed their game, exposed their plan, and unveiled their agenda in ways that made their control visible, their manipulation obvious, and their deception transparent. They panicked because you stopped consuming their poison, their toxic food, their toxic media, their toxic entertainment, their toxic products, their toxic information, and their toxic energy that kept the masses sick, distracted, and controllable. You started cleaning your diet, cleaning your mind, cleaning your energy, and cleaning your life of everything they used to keep you weak, confused, and dependent. Your detoxification from their poison restored your clarity, your strength, and your power that they needed suppressed to maintain control over you. Your health, your vitality, and your clarity threatened their ability to manipulate someone who was strong, clear, healthy, and independent. The elites panicked because you found alternative sources of information, of truth, and of knowledge outside their control, outside their monitoring, and outside their censorship. You discovered independent researchers, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge that contradicted their narratives, revealed their lies, and exposed their agenda. You stopped relying on their approved sources, started seeking truth wherever it existed, and started learning from sources they condemned, censored, and suppressed. This information seeking, truth finding, and knowledge gathering freed you from their information control, their knowledge monopoly, and their truth gatekeeping that kept the masses ignorant, misinformed, and controlled. They panicked because you remembered who you are, a divine being, an infinite consciousness, and an eternal soul having a temporary human experience. You remembered your power, your sovereignty, and your connection to the source, to the divine, and to universal intelligence that they worked lifetimes to make you forget. You remembered you're a creator being, creating reality through consciousness, through intention, and through focused awareness. This remembering, this recognition, and this reclamation of your true nature shattered their control over you. Because once you remember who you actually are, their illusions of power, authority, and control over you dissolve completely. The elites panicked because you reclaimed your sovereignty over your body, over your mind, over your choices, and over your life. You stopped asking permission from their systems, from their authorities, and from their institutions to live your life, to make your choices, and to follow your truth. You declared independence from their control. You declared autonomy from their systems and sovereignty over your entire existence. This reclamation, declaration, and embodiment of sovereignty inspired others to reclaim their own, to declare their own, and to embody their own freedom from systems designed to control every aspect of human life. They panicked because you exited their matrix, their simulation, and their controlled reality. You saw through the illusion, recognized the prison, understood the game, and chose to exit, to leave, and to transcend their constructed reality, their engineered consciousness, and their manufactured experience. You found exits they didn't know existed, pathways they couldn't monitor, and dimensions they couldn't control. This exodus from their matrix created a blueprint for others, created a possibility for the masses, and created proof that an exit is possible, available, and achievable for anyone who chooses freedom over comfort, truth over illusion, and reality over simulation. The elites panicked because you built outside their system, created alternative infrastructure, built a parallel economy, and established independent networks that operate completely outside their control, monitoring, and ability to shut down. You proved their system is optional, their infrastructure is unnecessary, and their control is avoidable by building alternatives that work better, serve better, and function better than their centralized, controlled, and monopolized systems. This building, creating, and establishing of alternatives showed the masses they don't need their system to survive, to thrive, and to prosper. They panicked because you taught others how to wake up, how to see through illusions, how to question narratives, how to think critically, how to discern truth, and how to recognize manipulation. You became a teacher, a guide, and an awakener for others still asleep, still controlled, and still trapped in their matrix. Your teaching, your guidance, and your awakening of others multiplied. It multiplied your impact exponentially and created an army of awakened souls who each became teachers, guides, and awakeners for others. This multiplication, this exponential growth, and this viral awakening terrified them because they can't stop what multiplies faster than they can suppress. The elites panicked because you raised your frequency above their control grid, above their consciousness prison, and above their vibrational fence that keeps the masses in lower frequencies of fear, of anger, and of division. You raised your vibration to love, to peace, to unity, and to joy that exists beyond their control, beyond their manipulation, and beyond their ability to influence. This frequency elevation made you unreachable by their lower frequency control mechanisms, made you immune to their fear-based programming, and made you free from their vibration prison that most can't escape, can't transcend, and can't rise above. They panicked because you chose love over fear every time, without fail, and without exception. They use fear as a primary control mechanism, a primary manipulation tool, and a primary power over the masses. But you chose love, chose compassion, chose understanding, and chose peace in every situation, in every circumstance, and in every choice. This consistent choice of love over fear made you uncontrollable by their fear-based systems, made you unmovable by their fear-driven narratives, and made you unshakable in your power, your truth, and your freedom that fear can't touch, can't reach, and can't diminish. The elites panicked because you healed your trauma that they counted on to control you, to manipulate you, and to keep you in patterns of dysfunction, of addiction, and of self-destruction. You did the work, the healing, and the transformation that freed you from trauma patterns that kept you controllable, predictable, and exploitable. Your healing made you whole, made you strong, and made you sovereign in ways they never expected, never planned for, and never prepared to handle. They were not prepared for someone who healed instead of staying broken, someone who transformed instead of staying wounded, or someone who freed themselves from a past that was supposed to control their future. They panicked because you broke generational curses, ancestral patterns, and family dysfunction that passed through bloodlines, through generations, and through families for centuries, keeping people trapped in cycles of poverty, addiction, abuse, and limitation that served their control, their agenda, and their system. You said, "Enough. This ends here, with me, now." You broke the chains that bound your ancestors, that limited your lineage, and that controlled your family for generations. This breaking, this ending, and this freedom released your entire bloodline from patterns they depended on to maintain control over families, over communities, and over populations. The elites panicked because you trusted your intuition over their experts, your inner knowing over their authority, and your divine guidance. You trusted it over their instructions. You learned to trust what you feel, what you sense, and what you know deep inside, even when it contradicted what they said, what they taught, and what they insisted was true. This trust in your inner guidance made you ungovernable by their external authority, unteachable by their false experts, and unleadable by their corrupt leaders who depend on people trusting them more than trusting themselves. They panicked because you refused to participate in their division, in their conflict, and in their manufactured wars between people, between groups, and between nations. You saw through their divide and conquer strategy. You refused to hate who they told you to hate, refused to fear who they told you to fear, and refused to fight who they told you to fight against. You chose unity over division, understanding over hatred, and peace over conflict. This refusal to participate in their division weakened their primary strategy for maintaining control over humanity. It disrupted their strategy of keeping people divided and fighting each other instead of recognizing the true source of control. The elites panicked because you became unstoppable through awakening, through healing, and through transformation that made you immune to their control, resistant to their manipulation, and free from their deception. You evolved beyond their ability to influence, to corrupt, and to contain you, your consciousness, and your power. This unstoppability, this immunity, and this freedom made you living proof that their control is breakable, their power is conquerable, and their system is escapable by anyone who does the work, makes the choice, and takes the journey that you took from sleep to awakening, from control to freedom, and from unconsciousness to sovereignty. Chosen soul. The elites panicked when you woke up because your awakening disrupted everything they planned, everything they built, and everything they counted on to maintain control over humanity, consciousness, and reality. You were never supposed to wake up this soon, this completely, and this powerfully, but you did. And when you woke, everything changed. Their timeline shattered, their control weakened, and their power diminished because you became what they feared most, an awakened, sovereign, free human being who sees through their illusions, who knows their methods, who resists their control, and who teaches others how to wake up too. Your awakening was their nightmare. Your consciousness was their crisis, and your freedom was their panic. Keep waking up, keep waking others, and keep being living proof that their control ends when consciousness awakens, that their power dissolves when people remember who they are, and that their system collapses when humanity chooses freedom over fear. truth over lies, and sovereignty over submission. You woke up. They panicked. Keep going. The awakening is unstoppable. The freedom is inevitable. And the transformation is happening through you and through others like you. It is happening through a movement of consciousness that no power on earth can stop once started. You woke up. Everything changed. Keep changing everything. The elites panicked because you stopped buying their products, physical products filled with toxins, mental products filled with propaganda, and spiritual products filled with deception. You became a conscious consumer, a discerning purchaser, and a sovereign chooser of what enters your body, your mind, and your energy field. You researched ingredients, questioned sources, and investigated the companies behind products, brands, and corporations. You discovered their poison in food, their programming in media, and their agenda in entertainment, and you stopped consuming all of it. This conscious consumption, mindful purchasing, and sovereign choosing withdrew your energy, your money, and your support from systems designed to keep you sick, weak, and controllable through what you consume. Your wallet became your weapon, and your spending became your vote. Your purchasing became your power to defund their entire infrastructure of control. They panicked because you left their cities, their urban centers, and their controlled environments where surveillance is constant, where programming is intense, and where natural connection is severed. You moved to rural areas, to small communities, and to land where you could grow food, where you could breathe clean air, where you could see stars at night, and where you could reconnect with the earth, with nature, and with natural rhythms that cities deliberately sever. This exodus from cities, this return to the land, and this reconnection with nature restored your sovereignty, your health, and your sanity that urban environments systematically destroy to keep populations dependent, controllable, and disconnected from the natural power that the earth provides, that nature offers, and that land gives freely. You voted with your feet, you chose space over density, and you selected freedom over convenience. They watched their urban control grids empty as awakened souls fled to freedom. The elites panicked because you started growing your own food, raising your own animals, and producing your own resources, breaking dependency on their supply chains, on their food systems, and on their control over the basic necessities of life. You planted gardens, raised chickens, learned preservation, and learned skills of self-sufficiency, of independence, and of sovereignty over your own survival. This food sovereignty, this resource independence, and this survival autonomy freed you from their control through scarcity, through dependency, and through the fear of losing access to what you need to survive, to thrive, and to live independently of their systems. You proved humans can feed themselves, can sustain themselves, and can thrive themselves without corporate agriculture, without industrial food, and without their permission to eat. They panicked because you homeschooled your children. You removed them from indoctrination centers, from programming facilities, and from consciousness control institutions that they call schools. You took control of your children's education, of their worldview formation, and of their consciousness development, teaching them to think critically, to question authority, to seek truth independently, and to value freedom over compliance. This educational sovereignty, this consciousness protection, and this developmental autonomy for the next generation prevented their programming. prevented their indoctrination, and prevented their control over your children's minds, beliefs, and futures as awakened, free, sovereign beings instead of compliant, controlled subjects. You raised warriors while they wanted to create workers. You cultivated thinkers while they wanted to produce followers. You developed sovereigns while they wanted to manufacture slaves. The elites panicked because you turned off their television, their primary programming device and control tool. It was their most effective reality engineering mechanism. You stopped watching their news, their shows, their sports, and their entertainment designed to program your beliefs, shape your reality, and control your consciousness. You reclaimed hours daily that you were spending being programmed, being manipulated, and being controlled through the screen, through content, and through carefully engineered messages, narratives, and frequencies. This screen freedom, this content sovereignty, and this consciousness protection restored your mind to a natural state, to clear thinking, and to independent consciousness that television systematically destroys. The average person watches 4 hours daily. You reclaimed 1,460 hours per year. That's 2 full months of waking consciousness returned to you, to your life, to your sovereignty, and to your actual reality instead of their manufactured one. They panicked because you canceled your subscriptions to their platforms, to their services, and to their systems. You left their systems of control, surveillance, and data harvesting. You left social media, deleted apps, and closed accounts on platforms designed to addict, to manipulate, and to control your attention, your time, and your consciousness. You reclaimed your presence, your time, and your mental space from algorithms, from feeds, and from endless scrolling that stole hours, drained energy, and programmed beliefs without you noticing. This platform exodus, this digital detox, and this technological sovereignty restored your agency over your attention, your time, and your consciousness that digital platforms systematically hijack. You discovered life exists beyond the screen. Connection happens without apps, and reality is richer than any feed could ever capture or contain. The elites panicked because you stopped taking their medicine, their pharmaceutical products, their chemical interventions, and their synthetic treatments that create dependency, side effects, and chronic conditions requiring more medicine. You turned to natural healing, to plant medicine, to holistic approaches, and to prevention over intervention. You chose wellness over treatment and vitality over the management of symptoms. This medical sovereignty, health autonomy, and healing independence restored your vitality, your strength, and your natural healing capacity that their medicine systematically suppresses to keep you dependent, consuming, and controlled through pharmaceutical dependency. You remembered your body heals itself when given proper conditions, proper nutrition, proper rest, a proper environment, and a proper mindset, things their medicine deliberately ignores while treating symptoms and creating customers for life. They panicked because you started meditating, praying, and connecting with the divine, with Source, and with a higher consciousness that exists beyond their control, beyond their influence, and beyond their manipulation. You developed a spiritual practice, a daily connection, and a regular communion. You communed with divine intelligence, with cosmic consciousness, and with universal truth that bypasses their systems, their narratives, and their reality completely. This spiritual connection, divine communion, and higher consciousness access gave you guidance they cannot provide, gave you strength they cannot replicate, and gave you a knowing they cannot substitute, making their authority irrelevant, their control unnecessary, and their power obsolete. You found the ultimate source, the highest authority, and the truest reality, and once you connected there, everything else, every earthly authority, every human system, and every temporal power, became obviously limited, obviously temporary, and obviously inferior to what you accessed directly. The elites panicked because you found your tribe, your soul family, and your conscious community of awakened beings who support, who understand, and who celebrate your journey, your awakening, and your sovereignty. You connected with others who see what you see. You found people who know what you know and who feel what you feel about reality, about truth, and about consciousness. This community building, tribe finding, and family creating outside their approved social structures created a support system, a strength network, and a consciousness collective that amplifies power, multiplies impact, and accelerates the awakening of everyone connected in ways their isolated, atomized, and divided society prevents to keep people weak, alone, and controllable. You proved humans are tribal beings, communal creatures, and a collective consciousness that thrives in authentic connection, in genuine community, and in a real tribe. These are things their system deliberately destroys to maintain control over isolated individuals who have no collective power, no mutual support, and no unified resistance. They panicked because you learned their symbols, their language, and their codes that they hide in plain sight. You studied occult knowledge, ancient wisdom, and hidden teachings. These teachings reveal their methods, their beliefs, and their practices of control, of manipulation, and of reality engineering. You learn to read their symbols in media, in architecture, in corporate logos, and in government seals, revealing their presence, their agenda, and their coordination across institutions, across industries, and across nations. This symbol literacy, code reading, and hidden knowledge access revealed their game, exposed their presence, and unveiled their coordination, making the invisible visible, making the hidden known, and making the secret revealed. You became literate in their language, fluent in their codes, and aware of their symbols. Seeing what most cannot see, understanding what most don't comprehend, and recognizing what most miss completely in the carefully constructed reality they engineer through symbols most people see but never truly perceive. The elites panicked because you stopped voting in their elections, participating in their political theater. You stopped believing in their left-right paradigm. You saw through the illusion of choice, the theater of democracy, and the puppet show of politics where both sides serve the same masters, advance the same agenda, and maintain the same system of control over masses who believe their vote matters, their voice counts, and their participation changes anything. You withdrew consent, removed participation, and stopped legitimizing their system through your belief in its validity. This political awakening, civic sovereignty, and democratic disillusionment freed you from their most effective illusion, the belief that you have power through their system, through their process, and through their carefully controlled mechanism of manufactured consent that keeps masses believing they're free while remaining completely controlled. They panicked because you started bartering, trading, and creating an alternative economy outside their monetary system, their banking control, and their financial surveillance. You exchanged goods, traded services, and built a local economy based on real value, real exchange, and real community rather than their fiat currency, their debt-based system, and their controlled economy. This economic sovereignty, financial independence, and monetary freedom created a parallel economy they neither control, nor monitor, nor tax, nor manipulate through their central banking, their currency control, and their economic engineering. You proved money is just an agreement, currency is just a tool, and the economy is just an exchange, and none of it requires their system, their control, or their permission to function effectively among conscious people who trust each other more than they trust their institutions. The elites panicked because you read banned books, studied forbidden knowledge, and researched suppressed history that they worked to hide, to censor, and to remove from public access. You found old books, ancient texts, and suppressed documents that revealed the truth about history. You learned the truth about reality, about consciousness, about power, and about control that their approved education, mainstream media, and official narratives deliberately conceal. This knowledge-seeking, truth-finding, and history-recovering revealed their lies, exposed their deceptions, and unveiled their manipulations of history, of reality, and of truth itself. You learned what they didn't want you to know, discovered what they tried to hide, and understood what they worked to suppress. And that knowledge freed you from their prison of ignorance, their cage of approved information, and their limitation of acceptable knowledge. They panicked because you stopped consuming their entertainment, their movies, their music, and their culture that programs consciousness, shapes beliefs, and controls the perception of reality through carefully crafted messages, embedded programming, and frequency manipulation. You became selective, discerning, and conscious of what enters your consciousness. You monitored what entered through entertainment, media, and cultural products designed to program specific beliefs, specific behaviors, and specific consciousness states. This entertainment's sovereignty, cultural discernment, and consciousness protection freed you from their primary programming mechanism, their main belief formation tool, and their most effective reality-shaping device disguised as harmless fun, as innocent entertainment, and as mere distraction when actually it's sophisticated mind control. It is consciousness programming and reality engineering delivered through content most people never question, never examine, and never recognize as the programming tool it actually is. Chosen soul. The elites panicked when you woke up because you did everything they never expected, never planned for, and never prepared to handle. You saw through illusions, questioned everything, healed your trauma, reclaimed your power, built alternatives, taught others, and raised your frequency. You chose love over fear, trusted the divine over their authority, and became a sovereign, free, awakened being living outside their control, beyond their manipulation, and above their frequency prison. Your awakening shattered their timeline, disrupted their plans, and weakened their control over humanity, consciousness, and reality. You are proof that awakening is possible, that freedom is achievable, and that sovereignty is available to anyone who chooses it. Keep waking up, keep waking others. and keep being a living demonstration of what an awakened humanity looks like. The elites panicked when you woke up because they know once awakening starts, it never stops. It only accelerates, multiplies, and spreads until everyone wakes up. You started it, others continue it, and together we complete it. The Great Awakening is happening. The elites are panicking. Humanity is waking up, and everything is changing. Keep going. Your awakening was their crisis, and your consciousness was their nightmare. Your freedom was their panic, and your example, your teaching, and your demonstration of sovereign living is their apocalypse, their revelation, their exposure, and their end. Keep waking, keep awakening, and keep being free. The elites panicked when you woke up, and they were right to panic, because once you wake up, once you see, and once you know, you can never go back. You can never unsee. You can never unknow. And neither can anyone you awaken. The awakening spreads. The consciousness expands. And the freedom multiplies until their entire system of control, their complete mechanism of manipulation, and their total structure of deception collapses under the weight of an awakened, conscious, and sovereign humanity. You woke up. Everything changed. Keep changing everything.